Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me again. I know everyone's going to be hungry right now and tummies are crumbling, so I will keep it short and sweet. So what I want to do with this talk is actually tell the story of how we build a resourceful robots lab system for a particular hard or extreme environment that was underground. And this brings DARPA has been having these robotic challenges. So there was the current challenge, the urban challenge that kickstarted the autonomous car driving. There was a robotics humanoid challenge, but then there was the subterranean challenge. And the idea there was that you have a complete unknown underground environment, which is spanning multiple kilometers. You don't have any priors. You are completely comms denied. So most of the compute is happening on the edge, what is carried by the robot. So everything happens on the robot. And where does the SLAM come in? Well, you have to find things in, or they call artifacts. So if you imagine a search and rescue mission, you have to find these things artifacts and report their location within accuracy of less than 5 meters. So you had to traverse a lot of this and again have same accuracy. So what was difficult here? So this is a small video of a robot walking in this underground environment. You will see it it's completely dark. All the illumination is carried by the robot. There's water dripping from the roof. There's not much, there are a lot of reflections going on. There are puddles on the ground. So for the VIO people, the IMU is getting really nice and excited. So how do you do SLAM in these type of environments? And that's our motivation, that how do you build a resourceful robot SLAM system in these challenging conditions and complex environments? And there are a couple of keywords here. So what is resourceful? So resourceful is to us, it's like a combination of multiple things. So first, your robustness, that your system should not break. So you should always have a pose and a map. And if one of the subcomponents breaks, it should recover quickly. There should be a way to restart it. So that this mission keeps going. And when things work nicely, you should be reliable. You should have some metric of accuracy because you have to meet that less than 5 meter mark. And finally, there should be redundancy. If things go bad, you should be able to restart it. The mission continues. And then you have a lot of, again, conditions. So you are not completely comms denied, no external positioning. It's completely dark. There can be obscurants. Temperature can be really up and down. And there are no priors because you don't know any idea what the environment has. And finally, the environment itself is complex, and not just complex in terms of what the environment presents, but the number of robots, the type of robots you have. So now you used to call them different robots, now you call them different embodiments, but the same concept. So how do you build a SLAM system for these things? So we started with a very simple problem. First problem, darkness. Let's build a system that flashes LEDs where they're shutter synchronized and then has an IMU trigger. So, okay, it's a very nice system. We will have some onboard illumination. Given this, we were able to navigate in a very dark environment. We were able to fly a drone. We were able to build a map. So we were very happy. Okay, step one, darkness conquered. But then we deployed in a real mine. And as soon as we went in a real mine, you can see that from the propeller thrust, the amount of dust that is being kicked off. So imagine what your camera sees on board. And this is what your camera sees. And these are 4 consecutive frames. So have fun feature tracking in these. It's a hard problem. How do we solve it? What we thought about it was what if we see the same environment in a different spectrum? And this is the same environment, same camera poses, but in long wave IR or thermal cameras as we call them. Right? And we can see a lot more in this environment. So can we combine 2 of them, make them work together? So, however, there were a couple of problems. I mean, the name is camera, thermal camera, but they sense irradiance, not intensity or photometric. And they were reporting data in longer bit ranges because they have to have a high operation range, but also have to have the resolution. And if you just simply try to put them into 8-bit, what we were seeing that there were a lot of rescaling issues, or there was a lot of inconsistencies between them. So one of the key things that we found out that these consistencies, when you scale them, they really blow up. And if you do, for example, before or after the correction, if you take the intensity changes and you scale them in 8 bits, you see the spikes, the whole histogram, it's like jumping around. But in 16-bit, or you try to preserve the resolution where the data was initially reported in, most of the intensity differences are very small. So this was the revelation for us. So we started building a system. Similar to photometric loss, we started doing a radiometric loss. And we would just start going back to direct methods and tracking these things in direct methods. So we don't need to do rescaling or anything, just get the raw data and directly implement. And then we had a sliding window optimizer on the back, because whenever these cameras or thermal cameras specifically do a calibration, you lose images for half a second to a second. So how do you result? And then, so okay, that's good. What can we do? Well, this is now working with a thermal inertial system. And on the bottom, you see is the bottom right, the yellow pose estimates are coming from the thermal inertial system, and the green ones are coming from LiDAR. We don't have a ground truth in this environment, so that was the best estimation. And this is going again in this environment. There's a lot of dust being kicked off. The camera lights are flashing, so we can actually see where the drone is, because it's very hard to follow it. But again, what you can see in the bottom right is it was able to maintain the pose estimate of almost the quality of a LiDAR while navigating these harsh conditions. This robot can now map or navigate this whole environment. So this is very good. Okay, we have some robustness. We can go in these harsh environments. We are still applying the principles of visual SLAM on it, and then it is working now. So the question becomes like, well, if you have a LiDAR here, why don't you just use the LiDAR, right? Why do we need visual SLAM? And that's good, because like here in this same mine, we put the same LiDAR on a truck, and we just map the whole mine. And on the bottom right, that little colored point cloud is actually the 100-meter point cloud around. So, and we do need a map for other tasks too. Like as soon as like visual SLAM is a component, but it's part of the robotic stack. To build autonomy, other parts of the stack demand different things. And volumetric exploration, search, path pairing, they demand some sort of map. More importantly, traversability estimation, where these robots step on, how do you assess the hazards? They require some sort of depth information. So just use LiDAR, that will solve all the problems. Well, not necessarily, everything comes with a cost. This is an underground tunnel where again a drone is flying, and this is more man-made, and you can see the flatness or self-symmetry of the environment. And as soon as the robot starts working here, you will see in the image that the robot is always moving forward. But as we are inside the tunnel, you see this, what we call LiDAR slip or ill conditioning of the optimization, and the solution starts jumping around. So again, there is again some cost. So how do you build these things, or what can you do? So for the Darba training challenge, what we came up with is a solution that we learned all these lessons, let's combine them together. Everything is complementary in nature, and what we call CompSLAM or complementary SLAM. And the idea there is that you have all these subsystems, you have visual, thermal, inertial, and LiDAR. Combine them in a hierarchical approach so that every time that you have a failure in one, you can bypass it. And then if you see it, it's like a waterfall. And on the top are the pose estimates, and everything starts with some quality metric. So for now, if you keep adding cameras, it is a lot of cost, and it has to run on the, again, on the on-edge device. So what we noticed is like, we have a lot of information in all these cameras, but we want to run a single visual SLAM system with a very small fixed number of features, so we never exceed our computational cost. How do you select these features? And one of the things we found was that when feature detection was happening, it's happening on a very small local patch. Then you extract a patch or a descriptor, which is much larger, and that would devoid of information. And the interesting thing is that when dust is flying in these red boxes, you will suddenly see this like high gradient thing coming in. You will detect it as a feature, next image, it's gone. So what we did is that we would track these large patches, and we would understand the gradient distribution in them, and only allow them. So this would allow us to extract features from these good information-rich regions, and then track them in our filter, so that we don't have to reinitialize and reinitialize and reinitialize all our. So this was one. For the LiDAR part, what we did was we would run a small, actually a smoother, and we would add additional constraints in it, so that when we do scan-to-scan matching, if we have slip, we can actually propagate it forward and give additional information in there. So that our solution keeps going forward. And finally, for our, again, we have to maintain the computational cost. For the final or the refined pose, what we would do is that we would take the whole point cloud, we would have a submap, but we will extract the submap only in regions where the LiDAR can actually see right now, and not use the whole point cloud for the map update, but use that small portion, so we are really, really fast, but then actually build the map with the full point cloud, so that when we reach further in, we would have enough point density that we can extract nice normals and still be robust. So this is all good. We built the system. We went to the DARPA subterranean finals, and they had 3 types of environments: cave, urban, tunnel, and cave. And they built all of it in an underground mine, multiple kilometers long. And this is a fly-through. You enter the environment, and then you take a corridor to the left, the center, or the right. And it's a completely different environment in there. And it was pretty fun because we took all our robots, part of Team Cerberus, and we deployed the same system on all these robots, which had a very different sensor configurations. Animal, the legged one, could carry a lot more, had like 7 cameras, multiple LiDARs, multiple IMUs, can carry thermal. The middle one was carrying one of each modality, and the small one was running on only with visual and LiDAR. And then you can see the computation cost is also different. So the embedded one was running a Voxel computer, mobile was running a NUC, and the laptop class was a little higher than the NUC. So again, the same algorithm running on all of them, again choosing how do you deploy it between different algorithms. And DARPA did a very good job. They tested all our capabilities. So first of all, like all environments were completely dark. So whatever we were seeing on the top left, only we saw with our onboard illumination. There were corridors with lack of texture, so you cannot extract any visual features. And also, it's very bad for LiDAR, so you were using other means of modalities to again propagate your solution. And then they had these little tiny corridors, like half dome tunnels filled with fog. Again, a lot of degradation in them. And then there were areas where the robots were just like bumping around. So again, a lot of excitation for the IMUs. My favorite was this one. They actually had sort of booby traps in there. And as the robot goes in there, suddenly a whole smoke clouds come in. And it's also really fun. And your SLAM has to work through this. And you still have to maintain a map, because if this estimation fails, everyone will blame you. So these were the 4 robots we deployed. Underlying is the ground truth. Each robot, we named them with C. So Chimera, Cerberus, Camel, and Cayman. And they all traverse this environment, map portions of it, and again, finding and reporting the artifacts. Luckily, we reported, or actually tied with Shehryar team for the highest number of artifacts, but we did it earlier, so we broke the tie and we were winners. But the actual fun of the project was the friends we made along the way, not in our team, but other team, and also with the robots. So again, it was a pretty fun competition to do. So SLAM work still doesn't stop. This is the exact next day of the competition. They allowed us to go in. So we walked the whole robot in the environment as much as we can until the batteries died. And you can see we tried to cover all the areas. And now this data set, actually on ICRA, we released it. So you can also have this data set. And also we also release now the CompSLAM code. So please have fun. Please beat it in the benchmarks. And I hope we keep building on this trajectory. So with that, thank you so much.
Go ahead, Michael.
Just as this is a little weird question, but just as a thought experiment, if you sent in half a dozen people who were blind from birth into that challenge, how do you think they would go?
If half a dozen people blind from birth, it wouldn't go well, because they, I think, would forget or get lost, and they would keep circling around, if they have been there or not. Whereas the real issue would be you have to find an object, and as humans, I'm actually very bad with my actual estimation. So if you tell me like, hey, find that recycling bin and report to me what the actual accuracy is, that's very hard for humans to do, like accurate. And so in this challenge, I think based on those conditions that we set, I think humans would not do so much. If you ask them to retrieve the objects, though, they would do very well.
I have a couple of questions regarding perception. So you mentioned the use of thermal cameras. Have you evaluated other frequencies of light? Like, I don't know, like the input from hyperspectral cameras, do they have like different properties that could be useful? And another question is, I think that I've never seen anyone using like structured light inside, like to estimate like 3D geometry. What do you think about that structural light?
So one of the functions why we were using long wave IR was a function of cost. These are the most cheapest cameras that you can buy, like short wave or mid wave IR are very expensive as comparison. Near IR is typically very close to what you have, like you can buy a real sense and they have a projector and they would do that. So we were like trying to disambiguate or go further away, and one of the reasons was dust, because the long wave IR is 7 to 14 micron range, so they can actually go around dust particles very nicely, whereas like all your visible is like between 400 to 700 nanometers. So one was that like, hey, let's put these wavelengths as point considering the function of cost. Your other one, we did not test hyperspectral. We did not have access to it. Structured light, we did not check for any structured light. So like kinetic, kinect or something like that, you are thinking, right?
I was thinking more like you are using like active lighting, right? Like
yes,
like lamps and so on. So like projected patterns or things like that.
No, we did not test light, so I cannot speak on that.
Do you know if anyone followed that direction? I mean, in this kind of like inside caves and so on, I guess that you are always using like active lighting, right? So, do you know if anyone is actively using like light, projecting it in a intelligent way that is not exactly LiDAR, but for visual data?
Not to my knowledge, but there are smarter people here, so they would know.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Do you have a sense of what it would take for a similar system but underwater? I think the challenges are again different, but yeah, have you ever thought about
So for underwater, it's interesting. There's some work that came out of it, and one of the things that we had to do was actually estimate the refractive index. So if the water saltiness changes, the refractive index is also changing, and so we put it as part of the estimator. So Mohit Singh, who's one of the same students continuing this work, so they try to do it with that, and then they would have some sort of like barometer to have the Z estimate, because it's not necessary like when you're like in the middle that you would have observation of anything. So you just integrate it and like try to go lower until you see something, and then you like sort of restart that. I'm not an expert on that, but I can share some resources with you.
While we're discussing like different sensor modalities, did you also consider like radar and also ultrasound?
Yes, so there's also another subsequent work for high-speed off-road autonomy where we use radar, and what we do is like if you have your, for example, vector graph or pose estimator, you typically have pose, quaterny, and linear velocity. We actually only get Vx and Vy in open fields because you don't get like much Z. But in structured environments like this, you can put like two radars side by side and get a Z component. So we were taking those, we were not directly putting it as a pose, but we were actually putting it as in the linear velocity and doing an update directly. And it actually helped a lot because in open areas, the LiDAR can be really, really degraded because it's like a flat field, but you keep propagating and your IMU biases, they're still pretty good and they like remain within. So yeah. And what was the second one?
For ultrasound.
Ultrasound. No. Sorry, I can't speak for that.
Did you work with LiDAR images, so dense LiDAR that returns also images? What is your experience in that? Did you apply this sensor in this environment?
So not in this environment. Here we had the Velodyne VLP16. And the reason why we had it was this is in 905 nanometer range. The dense one that maybe like from Ouster, they are very dense. They are in the 850 nanometer range. So if you have fog, they have a very large absorption as compared to these. And also the point cloud was much more crispy with these ones as compared to. We did a separate work where we took those LiDAR, like 128 beam LiDAR, for example, and you can run just, for example, something like RSS25 on it, and it actually performed really well. But in this work or in this domain, we did not explicitly do that. One thing we improved the visual SLAM quality was that we were actually, if we are going back, one block interesting was that once we had all these sensors, we were also doing, if you look at this little box here, we were doing feature initialization with the direct depth. So we could run multiple mono cameras, one for camera, one for LiDAR, and then if you have depth, you will initialize with that, and if you don't, but if the LiDAR scan sweeps over it, you reinitialize the depth, and it make the scale estimation problem really, really good. But you don't, you can just run one of each cameras. Keep the sensor suit small and also keep the compute small.
Just one very silly question. What was the endurance of the little guy with the oyster? The drone, the little drone.
Yes.
With there is an oyster on the top of it.
Yes.
What is the endurance with that system?
This is, I think, 8 minutes. 8 minutes.
Okay.
You're talking about the littlest guy, right? That was this small one.
Yes, yes, this one.
This was about 8 minutes. Okay. But the frame is like, there's a paper, Paulo made this one. The frame is custom designed, like super light, and they pushed a lot of design parameters to make it like go 8 minutes on that one. Very cool paper. It's called OWL, RMF OWL. So I can send you the paper. Thanks.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.